Welcome everyone. Today is going to be hopefully a transformational day for all of us. We are designers practitioners in a very, very difficult time. We are looking and seeing some crises and issues both with the design practice, the market, how design is working, and design ops as a transformational discipline that has emerged as a need in the last very few years really needs to bring some clarity to the businesses and to the organizations, because design operations literally it's changed by breakfast. We need to educate the businesses. We need to bring some clarity. And today it's all about reflecting on what is design operations, reflecting on our role within the design organizations, our role as agents of changes that actually are not executing tasks. We are delivering tangible business impact that really supports the design teams and the organization, and ultimately brings value, generates value by defining an operational approach to the strategy and the product vision that the organization had. We literally need and have to show the business value of design, and that's our task in a difficult time. And this is why today my hope is that we all will leave our screens with a new message and a new energy that is all about how can we support our organizations and drive the change and the transformation that we can and should deliver to make sure design and design operations lead the way. And it's all about mindset. It's all about thinking what is that we need to transform? What is change management? What does it mean to bring change in the organization, in the lives of our design teams, in the lives of our cross-functional partners, and how we can communicate the tangible results that we as design operations practitioners can and show the value that we do. Because everything around us is changing and it's stressful. And someone needs that clarity. It's on us. And as design-led practitioners that apply design thinking and design best practices, it's our time to empathize. It's our time to make sure we embrace liminal times, times of change, and we make sure we support the design industry, the design market, to see what is design and see the value that design operations does by focusing on the how rather than the what, and making sure we are all aligned on the big vision. And today is going to be transformational because we have some of the most well-known, thought-provoking design operation leaders with us. The topics are exactly what I just outlined. We will be talking about mindsets. We will be talking about transformation, how we can transform the design org. And by transforming the design organization, transform the product organization and the broader organization itself. We will be talking about change management, how we can change. And change means not delivering processes, not delivering tactical baseline activities, but to quantify and measure results, bring design, make design tangible beyond the pixels, beyond everything else. And because doing this is all stressful, we will be talking about design operations well-being. Because I don't know you, but when you care and you have designers to look after a team of 20, 40, 60, 100, it can be very stressful, and we often forget that we need to look after ourselves. So today is about us. It's about what we can do. It's about connecting. It's about making sure we start some new conversations or we refresh old conversation, but we connect. We are all on a learning journey. Let's make sure we learn together and we share. So this is why a massive thank you to the speakers that have joined and to everyone that is joining today, and to Harry Stewart that organized the event, and the sponsors that made it possible. And really, let's have a conversation. Let's start talking today. Keep talking, asking questions. Questions are our strongest tool for learning. And let's kick off today. So please make sure you use all the functionalities in the platform. You have a general chat, you have a Q&A, so make sure we collect your questions. And I really want to give space to the amazing speakers. And let's start with Angelos. Angelos, is someone I have very close to my professional career because I met him at my first design operation event. He was a facilitator. He is in Finland, so we are making this a very global event. We don't want this to be constraints. And I ask all the speakers for two things. Remember, I told that we deliver tangible benefits. We make the impact of design quantifiable. So I asked every and each one of the panelists and the presenters to share one design operations metric that is very close to their heart in this moment or in general. And we will be sharing this. And at the end of the year, in a couple of months, before Christmas, you will receive all the metrics that have been shared during the Harry Stewart conferences, Design Ops conferences. And I ask a fun fact, because you can learn about Angelos' fantastic professional journeys everywhere, but you probably can't learn that easily that Angelos actually owns and collects musical instruments, but actually he can't play any of them. And when I asked Angelos about his favorite metric, design operation metrics, he really focused on the human side and the empathy. So Angelos really cares for metrics that actually help us to understand how people feel in their job, in their company. So his metric is ENPS, Employee Net Promoter Score. So without further ado, let's welcome Angelos talking about how can we craft a design-led process. Angelos, to you, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me quickly share my screen and then I can get started. Thanks for the lovely intro, by the way, and it's true, you can see some of the instruments in the background. All right, please tell me if you can see my screen right about now.
Perfect. You can go.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Angelos Arnis, and for the past years of my professional experience, I have been involved with design operations in one way or another. And a lot of you might share the same experience with me. Early in your career, you did the job, but you did not call it something specific. Many times you did that out of necessity. Your title was something designer, but you spent time trying to figure out how to make the onboarding experience of your new colleagues better. Or how could you create a style guide so that the work that you do does not start from scratch every time? I would like to begin with a short story that is pretty relevant to this talk. So, in a 1968 paper, a computer scientist named Melvin Conway wrote the following: any organization that designs a system will inevitably produce a design whose structure is a copy of the organization's communication structure. What this observation meant in layman's terms was simply that dysfunctional organizations tend to produce dysfunctional applications. Ironically, Harvard Business Review rejected Conway's article that contained this famous quote that we now know as Conway's Law, because, as they said, he was lacking proof. Anyway, we all know that different organizations, they have different ways of operating. What often happens with products is that organizations build their teams and assign their product managers and designers around different functions. So in a typical e-commerce organization, you will have teams like growth, search, product pages, shopping carts, reviews, and so on. But what if instead we organized around customer needs, less about features? As Ken Norton says, when each PM has discrete ownership over an experience end-to-end, they can understand the customer problems more deeply and go all in on representing their needs. When I was working at the Finnish Postal Service, we structured our teams to function around customer journeys, as well as some cross-functional teams that enabled everyone else to build more collaboratively. For Posti, two major journeys were receiving a parcel, for example, and sending a parcel. And therefore, we worked to create a world-class experience around the whole end-to-end journey. By the way, funny story, here you can see an image from a workshop where I asked people to draw an org chart and pinpoint the design team's position in that chart. And I will pause for a second for you to enjoy that. I find it very funny. Right. So, in the end, what I'm trying to say here is that communication is hard. A product is a complicated thing, but once you add the human layer on top of that, the complexity is dramatically increased. So how does all that relate to building a design-led process? I always loved conceptualizing and visualizing processes. As a product designer, I was doing user flows, design sprints, and so on. Maturing as a designer, I transitioned more into facilitation, customer journeys, community events, what have you. And so what is really a process? Well, according to Merriam-Webster, it is a series of actions or operations conducing to an end, a continuous operation or treatment, especially in manufacturing. Quite funny also that we still use factory terminologies when we talk about work. The work that I was doing had processes, regardless how broken or great they were at the time. Now, the next question you might ask was, did I follow processes as rules? Not to the slightest, I would answer. So, what is the purpose, you might still ask? Amy Thibodeau puts this into words the best way possible, stating that processes are smart defaults because process is necessary, but good things can happen in ambiguous spaces. And working with and designing processes enables us to navigate between those smart defaults and the ambiguous spaces, returning to those defaults when and if everything fails. So why do we need a design-led process? The old adage, design is cheaper than code, highlights the importance of investing time and resources in design to avoid costly mistakes and rework during development. Here we aim to help de-risk business decisions by depending on real customer insights and identifying potential issues before they become costly problems in production. Furthermore, engaging in conversation and testing early with customers, it allows us to create a more collaborative approach, ensuring that the needs and preferences of the customers are considered from the outset. Design artifacts and processes, they serve as a catalyst for conversation and collaboration, fostering a spirit of exploration that encourages us to think more creatively and push boundaries as well. Design enables us to visualize the impact of today's strategic decisions in the future, guiding us towards more informed and effective ideas. When we claim that we want an org to be design-led, it does not imply that design now is in charge of everything. It simply means that design and research directly affect strategy, working with product management, for example, and the making of solutions, working with development teams. So design leads by leveraging good product and engineering decisions in order to have a clear scope of what is happening next. We want to put the customer experience at the forefront of the org. The metaphor here of the three-legged stool represents the balanced cooperation between design, product management, and development. One leg is shorter, then you trip and you fall, so all of them have to be the same size. Furthermore, design leads through change. Patricia also mentioned change here, and if we had a bigger card, everyone would be crossing the word right now. We're going to hear it quite a lot. Design operations, design systems, they need strong leadership. Change cannot happen unless it is a holistic change. And this kind of change also has to be championed by the company itself. So it takes careful planning and work for design to become an integral part of the company's DNA, and so that change can also become part of that DNA as well. So we need to create the space for designers, developers, product managers to work better together, and by extension, we need the organization to change. We need to systematize not only how the products are built, but also how people come together to actually do that. We need to build relationships that can affect how organizations communicate not only within them, but also with their customers. And we need to create a repository of all the best practices, as well as guidelines on how to create the best experiences for people. So let's take a look at the design-led process. One note here is that you will likely find a lot of process graphs, a lot of maps, a lot of double and triple diamonds, and so on. What matters the most, though, when we're talking about any sort of process, is the collective agreement of your organization to commit to a certain way of working. What I show here is what worked for my org. Your org is another thing with different people, and so you've got to create your own version. It might end up look like something like this. However, the devil is in the details. For my company, the problem was that we have been solutioneering instead of making sure that we are solving all the right problems. So our product had good solutions. However, the workflows of the users were a challenge for us. And what has also been a challenge was the way that we involved people in the different parts of the process as well. We wanted to change all that. So let's dig deeper into how we did that. The explore phase is informed by all the previous research that we have at hand, where we are refining our understanding of the customer needs, creating future states of the product where certain problems that we have now do not exist in the future. And we want to be able to reimagine how the product should be. Ideate and explore by identifying the different business needs and innovation opportunities that we can efficiently prioritize. We accomplish this by discovering opportunities, exploring market fit, and launching multiple initiatives. Product vision, customer journey vision, customer segmentation are typical artifacts here. These artifacts, they enable us to execute effective experiments, learn from them, and obtain real-world understanding of our customers' reactions to those experiments. In the discovery phase, this is where the majority of the research, customer insights, and product discovery of what's to come usually takes place. By visiting customers on-site, discussing with everyone else involved, observing users in their everyday work, we are gaining a thorough grasp of all the customer roles, the common responsibilities, their pain points, and the sequence of activities that they perform while at the job. We accomplish this by conducting research, generating ideas for distinct pain points, focusing on most likely candidates of solutions that we are very comfortable that they might stick. Typical artifacts include a repository of insights, customer journey mapping, and product briefs for what is about to be built next. These artifacts, they help us in making data-informed decisions, seeing the solutions we are producing in the bigger context of the customer's journey, and documenting those solutions for future learning and informing the future decisions. In the design phase, designers primarily carry out user experience and user interface design, but they also test more fleshed out ideas as solutions. This is design as craft at work. It entails brainstorming, cross-functional teams, developing prototypes, testing them with end users, leveraging design system patterns, for example. We accomplish this by experimenting and iterating and then producing final designs suitable for handoff to development teams. Typical artifacts in this process include Figma designs, complex user flows, representing ideal scenarios and edge cases, and fleshed out prototypes. These artifacts, they help us in visualizing our ideas to pixel-perfect results so that we may validate them with users before writing a single line of code. Once validated, the solution is ready to be built. In the develop phase, after the initial design is completed, development begins. So here, typically, designers work closely with developers, ensuring that the intended user experience has been implemented. Developers, they generally handle the bulk of the work here, and designers are assuming a more supporting role. Development teams, they build the final release after certain reviews are happening with the design team and everyone else. Typical artifacts at this point are design system documentation, accurate design guidelines and specs, and reviewing whether or not the solution meets the user's needs and the initial scope of the project. These artifacts, they help us in having a finished version of the solution that we have planned, ensuring that the solution is built correctly and that it has the degree of quality that we want to see them and we expect from our designs and work. And finally, in the release phase, once the solution is out, it is critical to collect feedback. It is critical to concentrate on metrics such as numbers of users, task completion rates, information findability, whether there's any functions that are missing, or to ensure that there's continuous improvement and customer satisfaction that is ongoing. This stage of the process involves a lot of measuring, as I said, studying and analyzing the data, as well as building ongoing learning loops that feed into the future work. Typical artifacts in this phase of the process include various forms of measuring, such as A/B testing, surveys, customer satisfaction scores, usage data, feedback from support, for example, quite important. And these artifacts, they help us in measuring the success of our process, gaining real insight into how we do things, and iteratively also improving our solutions and processes as well. All this is feeding back into the process, and it becomes a continuous cycle. As you have heard me saying for each part of this process, artifacts are key. Use different kinds of artifacts to document the ways that you're working together with your cross-functional partners, but also to create transparent pathways to learn and advance from the past mistakes, but also successes. It is a design task in itself to uncover for each function of your org what are their needs for artifacts, for example, and how to work together for it. Remember to think of the RASI model as well. So who is responsible, accountable, consulted, and so on. So to wrap up, there you have it. Treat processes as guidelines, not the law. Craft processes with partners and transparently. Design-led does not mean we get to run the show. Create an artifact-based approach. And remember, nothing is set in stone, so keep on iterating. That's it. Thank you very much, and I'll hand it over back to Pat, I'm guessing.
Fantastic, Angelos. I love it. If you have questions, please talk now or write it down now. I really loved how you have described the process. By listening to you, it's so easy, so seamless. What can go wrong with all you said? Or what is the thing that more commonly, let's say, what is the most common obstacle you encounter? Where do you see the biggest hiccups?
People. As I said also, like in the very beginning, processes are amazing, and you put the boxes there, and everything looks clean and nice. But then you add people on top, and you add different mindsets, you add different agendas, you add different short-term and long-term incentives as well in companies. So all these things are, I'm not trying to say that they're obstacles, but in a way they're still pushing you back a little bit. So crafting the process, I would say that it's the easy part. This talk is the easy part. If I can reshare my last slide, I could post a link to the bento if you wanted that specifically. But yeah, so having people and changing the mindset of the people, I think that's the hardest part. Because when we're talking about the design process, we're not talking about how designers are working, as just designers, but we're talking about how designers and product managers and developers, and of course, kind of like, the support functions around them, like product marketing as well, and other functions, how they're all working together, and how we're not, for example, making any duplicate efforts, for example.
Out of curiosity, okay, I see I have a question. Okay, we have more questions. Okay. Yes, Christina, it's kind of touching on where I was going. How to ensure that the non-design teams really understand the value of design? How can you shift to a design-led organization?
I would say that this is, again, the bulk of the work. So like there's a lot of educational programs that you have to create in order to upskill basically your cross-functional partners towards what design needs and why the design-led process is important. What we're trying to say, even for us at least, it was like we don't call it a design-led process for everyone else. We call it for us like that. But when we are communicating with others, we call it the product development process. So like the language that you're using as well towards that is also, it has to be intentional as well. If you say design-led process or product-led process, engineering-led process, it creates misconceptions. And for the economy or the sake of this talk, I named it design-led process for the crowd. But like I wouldn't call it like that when I'm talking with my cross-functional peers. So there's a lot of like translating, like intentional wording that goes on into it, and a lot of teaching and sort of kind of like, educating your cross-functional partners on the ways that we should be doing this, and why, of course, why we should be kind of like, involving research way earlier than just on the discovery side, for example.
Yeah, can't agree more. I think we have time for another. Isaac, apart from saying that your talk is awesome, and I absolutely agree with
Thank
that,
you.
he says, agree with everything you are laying down. The trick, as you say, is to get an organization to holistically adopt a solid and preferably design-led process.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Yeah, that's the $1,000,000 question, right? As I said, kind of like, if we are thinking about change, it has to be holistic and it has to be systemic. So like educational aspect is one of that. The language that you're using is another aspect of that. Having the difficult discussions, so to speak, about the fact that, designers are going to be frustrated if they do not have the space and the kind of like, the decision-making power to run research in discovery and exploration phase in order to create better decisions is one part of that as well. The mindset of experimenting, for example, and saying like, hey, yeah, okay, let's not just change the whole organization towards it. Let's just take one team. Let's just take one project and run this project with that and see what happens, see what kind of things we produce, see what we learn, and then maybe take it to another team and so on. So like, being scrappy, so to speak, is also very important. Doing reviews and, saying, well, okay, we did this, so now what? What should we continue doing? What should we stop doing? Like a retrospective, so to speak. So like you can use a lot of different things in order to create the conditions for actual change to happen. And of course, you have to talk a lot with your up, down, and across, of course, kind of like, in the different parts of the organization.
Fantastic. I want to add this question because M. D'Souza actually is perfectly on topic because she asked, what strategies have you found to be effective in changing people's mindset to accept or buy into this way of working?
Yeah. Doing internal research in a way, like as a design ops person, in a way you're doing that most of the times. For me, for example, it's very typical if I join an organization that I will do a round of what we call listening tour, and I will go and talk to all the designers, all the PMs, not all the developers sometimes, but quite a lot of people in the development as well, and get to know kind of like what works well, what doesn't work well, and what can I do to help. So like from the get-go, so to speak, I have a set of action points that I can take and do something with. So a lot of times, you find challenges, you find things that are actually nice, and then you can, for example, either connect the good things to the things that you're doing, like, well, okay, we have these PMs in these specific teams that they're doing more research and they want to do more research, but they're constrained by time. So what would happen if we actually let them do that and connect with researchers, for example, and so on. And then, of course, kind of like, visualizing the problems themselves or the challenges. This is also very important. So, again, doing a lot of research and keeping in mind that, of course, the org in a way is needs to be designed itself as well. So, like, you need to have this service design mindset where you try to understand kind of like, all the backend processes and how you can basically affect the change to happen.
Fantastic. And Angelique, your question is very close to my professional life today. So I'm particularly involved in asking this. So any tips on how to advocate for cross-functional road mapping processes when a product management team errs towards wanting to have majority ownership of the decision-making process?
Mm-hmm. Okay, now we're delving into politics. Well, I don't know if I have any effective tips other than kind of like, perhaps sometimes the design team has to do a lot of rogue work, so to speak, to identify whether, a process that exists already, for example, has, let's say, the impact that it should have or something like that. So like, doing a lot of testing and getting the data from the user and then feeding that back to the org, for example, is very crucial. And most of the time something is more like, let's say, product led. It means that, I'm not trying to generalize for all the orgs, but like most of the time it means that there's a lot of corners that need to be cut in order to move something forward and for roadmap to be kind of like, the thing that that stays there and it's not disrupted or anything like that. But like, design is rarely working like that quite well. Design needs to sometimes disrupt things to work in the ambiguity that I was talking about, and kind of like, to experiment, even if we're relatively sure that this is the solution that we should work with. Like, yeah, but what if? So kind of like, keeping that what if in mind is very important. So sometimes, people end up doing a lot of rogue work. In a way, that's how design operations came to be. People were doing that, but they never realized that they were doing something that was kind of like, a job, so to speak. And then it became a job. So it takes time, but yeah. Do things, ask for forgiveness later, but don't move fast and break things, please.
Great advice.
Yeah.
I have to squeeze in Nadia's question because it's just building up, and I think the more we keep talking, the cooler the question and the topic. Have you seen that designers themselves don't understand that they are equal partners with developers and managers? Any
Yes.
ideas on how to make sure designers are not just following the manager's agenda but drive the process?
Yes. So this is a big issue generally, and it also ties into the maturity of the designers and the seniority of the designers, right? Of course, not all senior designers are able to take things, matters in their own hands, so to speak, and go with something. But typically, more senior designers will have a better grasp on actually trying to get some sort of control over the design part of the process. And remember, we're not saying that designers should run the show, but we're saying that designers should have the design part of the process. If design is not represented equally in a project, that means that all the design decisions are not going to be taken into consideration when we're doing something. So this should have effect on something towards the customer's experience, and it should be easy to pinpoint when that happens. Again, education is something that design ops people are tasked with most of the time, and it doesn't only go to educating others towards design, but upskilling your people towards, being a better partner, being a better, let's say, advocate towards kind of like, the best practices that you're building, and being better designer in general, I guess. So like, I would say it all comes down to education, and of course, kind of like, having a support environment where hopefully these designers, they can come up with this problem and say like, hey, actually, I cannot do that, which is pretty human. Someone might not have all the right skills to negotiate effectively with their cross-functional partners, and that's totally okay. And they can get to start practicing that at some point.
Fantastic. I see a couple of questions. Jennifer is asking about what metrics you're using to demonstrate the value of design ops within a design-led process. So I mentioned you care for EMPS, but when it comes to show this value, how do you measure it?
Well, the work of design ops is usually much less, not transparent, but like it's very hard to quantify. It's like, are designers happy or not? Is that a good metric? Sometimes for some companies it is not a good metric. Sometimes it might be just enough. I don't think if that there is a good way that I have found that it's the most effective. One of the things is usually kind of like keeping a good log of activities and stuff that you're doing, and then basically once you're doing the work that you're doing, and like hopefully what I'm trying to do most of the time is try to create it as a program or like a project and so on. At the end of everything, you sort of create some sort of like report or something that you can then actionalize and share with the rest of the organization. So then it becomes something, again, that it's an artifact and it's shareable, and people can get access to that.
That's absolutely fantastic. I think as a closing remark, some people are just asking for any tips for trainings to help designers to feel more empowered, have more ownership, and step up. Do you have anything to share?
Well, of course, there are things out there. Obviously, coming to conferences like this and some other conferences that are around the same areas of topics are good places to at least kind of like, mingle and ask this kind of questions with other professionals, how they have tackled them with their organizations. Again, not everything is universal, so you sort of have to take in what people say and sort of kind of like, see what you can work with your own organization. Yeah, and then, for example, doing things like finding the right coaches towards that, and getting support through that on a one-to-one basis. And then perhaps I would say there are some schools, let's say, that are for more leadership kind of roles and so on. There's some new types of businesses that they're doing cohorts, for example, on design leadership. So it's learning by coming together with other people, sharing problems and getting ideas from others and so on. So I would look towards like things like that. I don't want to say names because I don't want to advertise anything, but I think people know in a way how to find these things. And I agree with some of the comments that you need also qualitative metrics. EMPS can only go so far. That is true. I haven't found something effective myself, but I would be happy to hear from others.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much,
Thank
Angelos.
you.
I mean, let's keep the conversation going and flowing, so don't stop asking. And that was absolutely a great opening, Angelos, because you
Thank you
touched
very much.
all the key topics: change management, processes, bringing the value of design to the business, and being design led with the right mindset. So we have 5 minutes breaks, and we need to go and click on the next talk altogether. So we have Alexandra Mengoni Leon. So we go from Finland to, I believe, Peru now. She will tell us. Talking about how do we make sure we don't burn out as design ops practices? What does it mean to take care about ourselves so that we can look after our teams and our metrics and our work? So thank you, everyone. Let's keep talking, and I see you in the other room. Bye.